So this has been a big question as to how did vocal learning circuits evolve? To answer that question, we also need to understand what are these vocal learning circuits. Well, only a few species have them, us humans, these songbirds, and a few others I'll tell you about in a minute. And they all have a similar brain pathway that we and others discovered in our forebrain that controls the muscles that produces sound. And what's interesting is in all the species that we discovered this vocal learning pathway, it's embedded in another pathway that all species have, learning how to control arm movements, hand, wings for flying, learning how to walk, and so forth. So this led to a new theory called the motor theory of vocal learning origin, where we think that the speech vocal learning circuits in our brain and these birds evolved by duplicating the pathway that controls other body parts and now hooking it up to the voice. Instead of learning how to walk, learning how to talk. So basically the vocal learning circuit is a motor learning circuit. And in terms of who has it and why so few species, well, like I said, us humans, but there are a few other mammals, elephants, dolphins and whales, what we call pinnipeds, those are like seals and walruses, and also bats in the ultrasonic range that we can't hear. And there are only three groups of birds, these songbirds like the zebrafinch, hummingbirds, and parrots. You just heard a learned song. And what that guy is trying to do is to sing to the females to say, my song sounds sexy, be with me. And we think that's one of the things that's selecting for vocal learning. But why so few species? Well, I think that predators are selecting against it. If you evolve this thing to keep attention to the opposite sex, you're also keeping attention to the predators out there, and you could be eaten. But the ones like us, like humans and dolphins, whales, the top predators, can evade these other ones. The common ancestor of these birds and songbirds and parrots was an apex predator. So that's one theory. There are many other theories as to why so few species have it. Maybe the ones that have the bigger brains. Songbirds have a bigger brain than other species. Humans have a bigger brain than other mammal species. Another is something about the social interaction of the species creates this environment for the genetic mechanisms to cause the brain circuit to evolve more social complex behaviors. But I like the predator and the sexual selection hypothesis the best. It makes more sense of what we're seeing, like these guys singing to attract the female. But there is one more new theory that we've come up with that explains both of these questions about where the circuits for vocal learning came from and why so few species. We call it the continuum hypothesis of vocal learning. And the discovery for that came from studying mice. We found that mice actually have a rudimentary brain circuit that we find in humans for speech and songbirds for song. And they have some rudimentary abilities to change their songs that the females like. And so what we think could be happening is that maybe it's not a black or white world, the haves and the have-nots, but it's a continuum, like turning up the dial or turning down the dial to make the behavior more complex or less complex. And in humans, we're at this end of the continuum, mice and some other species, frogs at this end, and other species in between. So we're testing this continuum hypothesis. And how we're testing it? Well, if mice are somewhere in the middle or even, a little bit at the other end of the continuum, can we take the human genes, put it in a mouse brain, in the mouse cells, in the mouse genome, and push that mouse to dial up the dial along that continuum and to get it to be more like a songbird, or maybe even us.